It always boils down to the basics. So, the tools may change. For instance, I think AI has become an amazing tool to create efficiency and some effectiveness around business development, but it still comes back to the basics, like understanding who your client is and shifting the typical agency messaging, which is it's all about us and we're really awesome and please, please, please like us, to more client focused, or I call it motivating messaging.
AI it's continuing to make the market saturated with really lousy messages
Yeah.
faster.
They said getting started was the hardest part, but no one told you how hard it is to scale a custom service business. It's time for your team to step up, but your clients want you. Discover how to scale to 7 figures and beyond by freeing up time and getting your team to run whole parts of the company so you can focus on scaling profits. This is the Hands Off CEO with Mandi Ellefson.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Hands Off CEO podcast. Today I have on the show Jody Sutter of the Sutter Company. Welcome to the show, Jody.
Thank you very much. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, so I've been watching Jody for we've had some mutual friends, mutual connections, and we connected on LinkedIn. And I'm like, I think this would be a great podcast episode because Jody works with creative agencies, creative services, and she in the area of business development coaching and an advisory firm. And she's the inventor of the Build, Win, Scale system, which is a step-by-step process designed to help leaders of small marketing agencies identify and activate their natural talents for sales and marketing, leading to a sustainable approach to winning new business. And welcome to the show, Jody. It's so nice to have you.
Thank you. It's really great to be here. Thank you, Mandi.
Okay. So I would love to hear from you. What are some of the challenges that you're seeing in the industry when it comes to making sales with agencies? What are some of the challenges you're seeing?
Yeah. So in terms of agencies selling themselves to others, to their prospects.
Yes.
Yeah. So, it's interesting, as our business is always evolving. And yet what I find is that when it comes to business development, when it comes to generating awareness for your agency and pitching the right prospects and pitching them effectively, it always boils down to the basics. So, the tools may change. For instance, I think AI has become an amazing tool to create efficiency and some effectiveness around business development, but it still comes back to the basics, like understanding who your client is. And as agencies maybe shifting the typical agency messaging, which is it's all about us and we're really awesome and please, please, please like us, to more client focused, or I call it motivating messaging. It comes down, once you understand who that client is, then it's much easier to use your time smartly. So again, is that anything that is a new challenge? Absolutely not. I think agency owners have always been trying to figure out, how do I use my time in a smart way to generate enough business? How do I choose the right clients without cutting myself off from work that I really want to work on? And then how do I do it consistently? How do I know that when I get back into the office tomorrow or the next day or the day or that 90-minute time that I've scheduled on my calendar to do biz dev, how do I know I'm going to make that as efficient as possible? How do I know what's the playbook that I'm following?
Yeah. I think you bring up a really good point there about how this is not a new problem. And I think that there's two different aspects to AI. One of them is like, how do we use AI to become more efficient with our operations so that we can be competitive in that way, right?
Yep.
And then the other side is like, how are we using AI for marketing ourselves? And I think that there are, to your point, there AI is going to it's continuing to make the market saturated with really lousy messages faster. Yeah. And it's doing what automation did. We've seen an increase in growth of automation, and everybody's looking at let's just automate, and all it did is just made a weaker message. What was that, Jody?
Alienate.
Right. So like we're running into the same problems, and it really comes down to the basics. So let's talk about that. What are the foundational pieces they now need to have in place that maybe they're not making a priority?
Yeah. So, and again, I sometimes I feel like, am I really still talking about this? And there are plenty of other people, esteemed colleagues who also do what I do, or probably you as well, Mandy, that you probably, I'm sure you include this in your initial conversation, but it's really, for me, it's understanding the key thing at the beginning is understanding who you're talking to. So when I work with clients, I always start with the positioning, and that can be a very tricky area because it becomes very emotional for clients. It requires them to make certain decisions and eliminate certain possibilities, or at least that's what it feels like. Um, but it's really essential, especially for that smaller agency that has such limited time. So, can you pitch 5 categories that are enormous? Can you say, yeah, we specialize in consumer packaged goods and automotive and hospitality? Sure. How you as a 20-person agency are going to actually efficiently generate leads and close those leads, I don't know, because that's a lot of people. So I think if we can also switch that, so you're really thinking about whether it's a category, and by the way, it doesn't have to be a category either. I sort of look at this overlap between category, the types of clients that category tends to serve, and the types of work that you specialize in. And there's a nice rich overlap that often brings up sort of organically a positioning arrives. So it's got to be client focused. And I think that's also where we start. In fact, I when we do positioning, I think a lot of people start with, like, let's think about what makes you, the agency, different. And I like to take that pressure off and say, let's talk about your clients first. What do you know about your clients? Who are you working with? Why are they a great client for you? How are you fulfilled by them? How are you helping them? And now let's look at that before we start looking at the what I call points of distinction and why those are important to your ideal client.
Yeah. And, one of the things that I've seen agencies really struggle with is like being able to quantify what it is that they actually do for them. And do you see that as well?
I do. And it's interesting that you use the word quantify, um, because, and I'm curious to understand what you see too. So I think part of it has to do with this fear of missing out if we really. So again, by quantify, are you meaning like being really specific about what they do for
Yeah,
clients?
well, being able to, what I'm talking about quantifying, I'm talking about quantifying the results. And a lot
Oh,
of them, they're like,
yes.
well, we don't really know because we don't have access to that information.
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably a battle I've been trying to fight for a long time. And again, I'd love to hear what you've done to work around that. It's it's indicative, I think, of a bigger issue, and that bigger issue is that creative agencies, tend to be, or marketing services agencies tend to be people pleasers. Big generalization. I understand, but there's this sense of, the client is always right. We may lose this business or this opportunity if we challenge the client. And so if the client tells us from the outset or even at the end of a project or an engagement that they can't share results with us, well, that's the way it is. And so rarely do I find agencies pushing back or even having that conversation early on. Like, I think that's a conversation that has to happen when you're negotiating the contract.
Right.
And it also has to be understood that it is the way that you as the agency stay healthy and viable as a business is to be able to um, show that you do good work for others. And of course, the
Right.
whole reason that client, that prospect in question, is interested in hiring that agency is because they can demonstrate expertise through working with other clients. And so I find it also a little bit contradictory, a little bit hypocritical that some agencies won't share results and yet they want to see the results before they hire that agency. So I think challenge them at the beginning, but a lot of agencies, either they don't think about it at the beginning or they just don't like to challenge, or maybe a combination of both. Is
Yeah.
that what you
Yeah.
see?
I have, and I think that those are some really great distinctions that you bring about around. It's really a mindset, right?
Yeah.
And those are good points that you bring up around how it is contradictory, and you can have the conversation. And I think that is a fair conversation, and it requires a lot of confidence to be able to have those conversations. And one of the things that we look at too is how do we be able to make this be a win-win? It's like, how
Yes.
do we be able to incorporate um, it, actually collecting the data as part of our process?
Hmm.
and as feedback loops. Because here's the thing: is that do you want? This is the questions you might ask for the client is like, do you actually want us to deliver real tangible results and real tangible ROI? Well,
Yeah.
how do we know if we're actually being successful unless we actually have full access to understanding why it's working? And so
Yes.
otherwise, we're not going to be able to pivot and innovate. So what I would say is that agencies that are accepting contracts without understanding the KPIs are driving blind. They're driving blind.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, it's also interesting. There's not always the willingness, or they don't think they have the permission to ask those questions, as you just said. But to
But
and it's not even challenging. Is I know that could be a sort of a scary word, but yeah, asking those questions. You want the client wants to see results, so let's ask a little bit more, probe a little bit more about what those results are and what the objectives that agency needs to reach, and how do they know?
yeah, right. And well, the other side of that too is that it's the positioning, really. It's like if you're having a hard time asking that question, the reason why is because you're seen as a vendor.
Yeah,
You're seen as a lower level service provider, not as a strategic growth partner. And strategic growth partners get access to the numbers. And if you don't get access to the numbers, if they don't let you, you're a vendor.
that's a great point. Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. No notes. No comments.
No notes, you said?
I said no notes. Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
totally agree. Yeah, nothing to add to that.
Right. So then what are you mentioned your build win scale
Yeah,
framework. Do you want to walk us through that?
yeah, sure. So I realized that for a small agency, again, they've got a lot. Small agency owners, they've got a lot of other things that they've got to do, but ultimately they are also the ones that are responsible for business development. They're probably not, so it's like you rarely find a business development director going out and deciding to start an agency. It is the strategy director or the creative director or the account director who or maybe it's account director and creative director who partner to start an agency. So they don't always come up with those business development skills. So what I started thinking about as over the decade or so that I've been running my business, I started looking at the core reasons why agencies hired me. One is the first reason is we're not finding enough clients. Our pipeline is weak. And often agency owners think, well, we just need more leads. And I usually think it's more about they're not positioning themselves correctly. So that's the first part of the build, win, scale is let's make sure that you are pitching the right clients. You understand who those clients are. You understand what motivates them, what their issues are, and that your messaging and you have a messaging strategy to address those issues. A core thing that you can go back to over and over and over again. Doesn't matter what the tactic is, you're always going back to that foundation that you have built. So that's sort of the strong positioning is going to help you find more leads in your pipeline. The second part, the win phase, that really addresses the second main reason agencies come to me, which is we're not converting. So maybe we're getting in the rooms or we're getting the calls, we're attracting the clients, and then but they're hiring someone else. That I think is there probably is not critical decisions made, or there needs to be critical decisions made around sales tactics, marketing tactics, and also closing tactics.
Mm.
I think again, another really tough thing for small agency is there's a lot you could do. There's a ton of stuff you could do. You could have a whole other agency just doing business development for your small agency, between whether podcasts or speaking or hiring sales teams. So I really look at what tactics make the most sense. And I see it sort of like an ecosystem and like a natural ecosystem. You want the things that you put in that ecosystem to work with each other to cultivate an environment that's rich for growth. And it's the same thing. So let's start with one thing. Let's base it on that agency's strengths and then build an ecosystem around that one thing. So what I find is some agencies, maybe they are really sales oriented. And so we'll make some decisions around, we'll build it around a sales or an outreach system. Maybe sales is the last thing that they want to have to intersect with. They probably can't avoid it, but then let's make it more of a marketing focus so that you are more naturally, more organically generating leads. And then finally, in that closing part, let's make sure that you are equipped with a process that that allows the agency to take as almost as much control as the client usually takes in that closing process. The final complaint or issue that agencies ask me about is they say, everything's just chaotic. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. I don't know how to use my team. And that's the scale part. So that's where we start to create an ops manual around business development so that you can hand it off eventually, maybe to a salesperson. We want to put systems around tracking your progress. And so tracking the progress is, of course, going to be around revenue. How are you tracking revenue? But also, how are you measuring your success in terms of quality of leads, number of pitches, or even how are you tracking your progress towards improvement, those internal improvements, whether it's relaunching a new website or starting a new marketing campaign? How are you keeping yourself accountable? And then mapping the future, looking at how once you start shifting your business development approach to more of a strengths-based approach, how do you sustain that maybe 3 to 5 years on? So that's the scale part of the built when scale connection framework. And the outcome is really this new business operating system. So it's a thing that this sort of living, breathing operating system that the agency owner can continually go back to just to understand, this is what we're doing this quarter, this is what we're doing this year, this is what we're doing this week, this is what I'm doing today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And well, it sounds very comprehensive. And one of the things that I heard from that is like, just focus on your strengths, because, someone who is not as sales focused, that maybe focus it more on the marketing focus. And we've seen that too with some of our clients that are exceptional at what they do. And they have moved a lot of the business development around marketing to like a particular event. And they go in the event and they just are naturally selling because of their expertise and how they're able to build the right build the right value for people to be able to look for the next step.
Yeah.
And one of the things that allows you to do it, like what I'm hearing from the operations manual you're talking about on the sales side, is that it reduces the skill that you need to be able to remove yourself from the sales. And I don't know if you've seen this too, but a lot of owners will say, I'm just going to go and find this superstar salesperson, and like they're just going to take over everything. And like, it never works, right? It never works. And and instead,
or the opposite, we're gonna bring someone on, but they're gonna be more junior, so it won't cost a lot of money, but it'll help get our name out there, and they're not equipped to manage that junior person.
Yeah,
so
it's just like
a waste of money and time.
It's just open up the toilet lid, throw money inside, and flush. That's and like, I mean, you've probably seen like I've seen people literally waste hundreds of thousands of dollars on these really comprehensive systems and these flashy people who do a great job of selling themselves. I can do all this. It's like, I can do all this if you have the exact system set up, and I have been like put it in place with all the right team around me. I can do all of it perfectly, right? But you don't have those things in place.
Yeah.
But I have seen, though, once you have those systems in place, like once you've defined this is what actually is working, which is the job of the owner. Okay. Like you can't abdicate that. Like,
no.
And then you can actually say, well, these are the pieces that are administrative. These are the pieces in the marketing side. And then I can show up and do the magic.
Right. And I think, there is unfortunately a lot of admin around business development. And so I think that's also where agency owners tend to get stuck. So like, just to use, a somewhat random example, most agency owners dislike having to update their CRM, if they even have CRM software installed and working. That's a really administrative task, but it's also really essential in order to track your progress.
Right.
So that's the kind of thing that it's pretty easy these days, even if you're outsourcing that admin, to get that kind of support. So as you said, they can show up and do the magic, whether that's stepping on a keynote stage or whether that's work in a room.
Right. Well, and we've definitely seen that too. And I am definitely one that like, I'm not the only one who does sales on our team, but like, I hate updating the CRM, and I'm not going to do it. It's just not, I'll read it. I'll look at the information. I might add some things here and there, but like, I'm not managing that. It's not my job. Yeah. And, the process that we took and we help our clients take is that we actually had, hired a sales admin that they start out as an administrative assistant. And then they actually become like they're your right hand. They know how you respond to emails. They know how you they listen to
Yes.
the end of your sales calls, especially to know where like these are the things that I need to do on the administrative side, and all of this work gets done, and then you can stay in the strategic zone. But
Yeah.
and also what we had our sales admin do is build out a whole sales development playbook. So he did that, and this was before the days of AI,
Yeah.
and now it's even easier to do that. But that's just what I'm finding is like when you actually strategically do it, like you're talking about with your 3-step process, then you're
Yeah.
able to actually build out the systems to make it repeatable so that you can stay focused on the 20% that no one else can do quite as well.
That's right. And you're making the decisions. It's easier for you to decide to eliminate the options that aren't going to work for you and really embrace the ones that are and know where you need support. 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, here's one of the things that I have seen too with agencies is like if you can remove 80% of the admin and that the pieces that are if you can put into a replicatable system that it actually is working, I have found that the CEO can stay in the most important part of sales for a lot longer because
Yes.
it reduces the level of time they need in it.
That's a great point. And then that makes it easier for them. It's easier for them to be enthusiastic about it. I mean, I think
Yes.
one of the things I see repeated all the time, and this might be different for the agencies that you work with, but that that forever recreation of the credentials deck. And by the way, I have kind of a love-hate relationship with the creds deck. I think it's used in the wrong way. I think it's used as this all-around like sales marketing tool, and it's pretty imperfect. But yeah, this sort of like, well, we're pitching tomorrow, we're pitching this client, and next week we're pitching that client, and we've got to redo the entire creds deck. That I think also comes down to positioning, because if
Yes.
you really know who you're reaching, then you shouldn't have to do that. But it's always a sort of search for something better, for something new, for something that sounds a little different. Wow, a lot of energy is wasted on that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's a really good point too that you made earlier about like how relevant is the credentials deck because it's all about you and your skills and your expertise, and that's perfect
Yeah.
if you're going and like you're pitching yourself as an employee. But as a business, what you should be doing is looking at what are the problems that we're solving, what are the
Yeah.
kind of results that you can expect to have working together with us, which takes some real thinking work, like you mentioned
That's right.
before. And until you do that, you shouldn't be surprised that you're treated like a vendor or that you're getting passed over by the very best deals when they're looking for that really high level strategic partner.
I mean, the problem with the credentials deck, or I think why it's still so sticky and everyone still wants to use it, is that the clients still ask for it, marketers still ask for it, and a lot of times I think it's asked for as a way to like, yeah, just send me your creds deck. And so
Yeah.
agencies want to keep the client happy, so they comply. I think a creds deck is best used as a sort of a post rationalization tool. So it's used in that way, maybe at the beginning of the process, once that prospect has already gotten to know you a little bit, and you're at the stage where they need to sort of sell you into their own organization. Then a creds deck can be very useful. It also
Mhm.
comes maybe at the end when they want to make sure at the point where they're about to hire you that in fact they can justify their decision. And so a
Mhm.
creds deck is useful there as well, because it goes through and says, yeah, here's all their credentials, because it's a creds deck. But
Right.
it's not a great introduction tool. It's not a conversation. It doesn't really help to to solicit a conversation. And yeah, I just sort of wish that agencies would put it aside more often.
That makes a lot of sense too.
Mhm.
I see that a lot with agencies that we work with them on their offers and helping them find their
Mhm.
invisible advantage. Like what are they better at? What is the big outcome that it can actually produce in the market?
Yeah.
And what do they really stand for? The transformations. And a lot of times they take. I've seen a big mistake is they take this offer and then they like just like email it to someone like before they just naked and just like you're like you just scammed this person.
Here, take my new baby. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like, here's the thing is that in a world where we are being bombarded with hundreds of messages every day, like, you better answer the question with them pretty fast. What's in it for me? And if you can't get into their world and be able to describe exactly like why they should listen and why they should even like not delete this message or push spam, like
Yes.
you better be able to get in their world pretty quick.
I completely agree, which is another reason why I often try to dissuade my clients from having focusing on too many categories, that consumer products plus automotive plus hospitality. Um, that's
Yeah.
really, that's all, those are, it's a depth of knowledge that I think is difficult to maintain.
Yeah,
So,
that's a really good point. And the way I see it is it's like niche stacking. So you can start with one and then
yeah.
stack as the company continues to grow. And when you're
Yes.
at 10 million, it makes sense to have that many categories because you can have other people own those
Yeah.
categories.
Yeah. Or I will encourage it if there's some other sort of layer that on top of it that unites them. So whether it's a common demographic, if you specialize, you work in all three categories, but you specialize in reaching, you know, middle-aged women or moms or teenage boys, whatever that is, or
Right.
you specialize in a particular type of technology or marketing service, then it becomes a little bit easier. Like the problem becomes more granular, like really easier to define sharply, and then you can then you get like I don't know, you get like tokens that you can use to broaden your categories. But
Right.
everything can't be broad. I think it's the well, we don't want to lose any opportunity. We want to work with anyone. That makes it hard, really
Right.
hard.
Which is scarcity thinking, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And one of the things that I've seen, and maybe you've seen this as well, is that when you actually narrow down and you get the messaging so much tighter and more succinct, I find that you still have people that are a little outside of that category
Yeah.
that comes in through your sales process, through your defined sales process that you control and you dictate
Yes.
and determine.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you can decide at that point, do they fit? Do you have capacity to bring on someone that's a little bit off there? Do you want to create a more custom engagement that you're going to charge more for,
Hmm.
that goes off your typical radar,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I totally agree.
Yeah, because I see they still come in. Um, so Jody, we're coming to the end of our interview. I'd love to hear what is a question that I didn't ask that I should have.
Mm. Wow. It's funny. I asked that on my LinkedIn Live series, and it's interesting being asked it now. It's like, oh gosh, what is a question? I think you did a great job of covering a lot of the bases. I feel a little put on the spot. I wish I could. I probably sound more intelligent about a question that you should have asked. I guess. I don't know. You know what?
Yeah.
I feel like we covered a lot.
Okay, right. Well, one question that like I can't stand is when they ask
Yeah.
like, what is the most five impactful people or books or something like that's totally on the spot. I'm like, I can't think of
Yeah.
those. At
Like, give me a chance to go back to my app. Like, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Although I
Well,
will
if
say right now, I have to say I do kind of, I've thought about doing a new business book club open to anyone, sort of free, like, here's what I'm reading and let's all read it together. And right now I'm reading Flow, which I find really fascinating. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the author's last name because it's complicated and I haven't learned how to pronounce it yet. I think he's I think a Polish American or Czechoslovak or Czech. Anyway, but fantastic book about how we as human beings living on this earth can control our sort of conscious environment to stay focused on what matters most to us. And so I think there are some interesting alignments with sales and marketing too there. So
Ooh, I
Flow,
love
have to
that.
check it out. It's not new. It's been around for about a decade or so, but it's really fascinating.
I love that. Yeah, and it puts you in a different brain state as you're operating, which just it definitely is. It lights you up.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Jody, how can people reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, so I would love to hear from people. You can email me the most direct way, and that's at Jody, that's Jody with a Y, at thesuttercompany.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn all the time, posting, looking at folks who are interacting with me, and I'm interacting with the folks that I serve best.
Thanks so much for coming on the show, Jody. It was lovely to have you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Hands Off CEO with Mandi Ellefson. If you want to work less and make more, make sure you subscribe and get a new episode every week, and help spread the word by leaving a review.